I've gotten a lot of flack from you folks out there, and I'll just pull some of this up and read it to you because it has to do with the Ground Zero Mosque, as it's being called. Let me just to read you. Well, the story is, of course, in the last day or so, the New York City Landmarks Commission unanimously voted to deny landmark designation to the site of the proposed mosque near Ground Zero, paving the way for the controversial community center and worship space to rise 2 blocks from the site of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attack. The way I look at it looks like 3 blocks, whatever. So I get this email out there. It says, Phil, I almost had blood running from my ears listening to your defense of the mosque at Ground Zero. You kept saying we don't keep people from building churches in this country. You missed the central issue so completely. They can build a mosque anywhere. Why at the place where thousands were killed by Muslim extremists? I think you might see why this is an in-your-face insult to America, to those who died and to their hurting loved ones, if you consider the following. What if the KKK or the Aryan Nation wanted to build a church of white supremacy across the parking lot from where Martin Luther King was shot? They could build it anywhere, but chose that spot. Do you think that officials would allow it? I don't. What if neo-Nazi group wanted to build a church across from the Holocaust Museum? Should that be allowed? No. Well, actually, yes. That's the whole point. It's not being, he goes on, what if a John Wilkes Booth admirer wanted to build a Booth Memorial Church across from Lincoln's birthplace or the Lincoln Memorial? Well, yeah, if they want to. I mean, but what you're doing is comparing you're assuming, and this is where we get in trouble. And folks, can I speak to you folks out there, frankly, for a moment? This is where we get in trouble. When you start lumping all Muslims as terrorists, then you're playing into the terrorists' hands, because that's what they want. They want all Muslims to be considered like them. They want you to consider all Muslims to be terrorists, because if you do, then it makes their job all the easier, because then you will be cast aside, ridiculed, and they will be able to do whatever they want to. The terrorists I'm talking about. First point that needs to be made is this mosque is not going up at Ground Zero. It's 2 or 3, depending on how you count blocks, 2 or 3 blocks away from Ground Zero. It's owned by someone who is going to sell it to somebody else who wants to put a mosque there. I don't have a problem with a mosque. And we have people around here down in Murfreesboro near Nashville who are all upset about a mosque, a proposed mosque there. I don't have a problem with a mosque. Why do you have a problem with a mosque? Because it's those Muslims. We don't know what they'll do. If in fact they're doing so, and I understand, don't get me wrong, I have preached on this till I'm blue in the face. There are plenty of mosques around here, especially in the New York area, that were fostering and building budding terrorists out of their mosques. There's no doubt about that. You find out that's going, you go and bust them for that, right? But you don't say you can't build a mosque. There are mosques around this area already. I've driven south of here to the Nashville area around Franklin. You go out there, going out towards the Natchez Trace Parkway, the Nacho Trace out there, and there's a mosque right in the middle of nowhere. And now people are saying, no mosque, no mosque. Well, the thing about it is I think you're playing into their stereotype. They want you to be all upset about this so they can say, see, look at these people. I mean, they're just, they're stereotyping us, and then you bring sympathy to the terrorists, which is what they want. Don't play into their arms. Second of all, says, what if the KKK were to build a church of white supremacy across the parking lot from where Martin Luther King was shot? You are assuming that every Muslim is like the KKK. There's no comparison. But again, I would say if the KKK wanted to open up shop across from the, what was the name of the hotel? The Lorraine Motel in Memphis, they have every right to. It may be in bad taste, but nobody should be able to stop them. And he says, what if the John Wilkes Booth Society wanted to build a John Wilkes Booth Memorial across from Lincoln's birthplace? There's nothing that stops them. You don't go and say, well, you can't build that there. It's not yours. If you wanted to build, if you want, I'm telling you, if you wanted to put well, I'm trying to think of a good example here. We got the guy that killed Kennedy. What's his face? Oh, what's his face?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
that fella.
That guy, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes.
If you want to put a Lee Harvey Oswald souvenir shop at Dealey Plaza, you have a right to. No, this is America, folks, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it. You're worried about the fascists that go and tell everybody what they can and cannot do, and that's what you want to do. I mean, I don't understand why you people are playing into their hands like this, because you're doing exactly what they're saying. They're accusing you of. You are looking like a bunch of bigots who paint with a broad brush, and that's exactly what they want you to look like.
Why don't you look like a brain-dead redneck?
Well, that's what they want, and that's what they're going to get. And so we have all these people, no, Ground Zero Mosque. It's not at Ground Zero. Now, look, I can understand if somebody had gone in there and bought up the exact site where Ground Zero is and was going to put a mosque there. And I know not all Muslims are terrorists, but all the terrorists that day, and most of the terrorists we know around the country, they're Muslim. I understand that insensitivity. I understand why people be outraged. This is 2 or 3 blocks from Ground Zero. I mean, and New York is not that big of a place anyway, land-wise. I mean, that's a long way. Why are they upset about putting a mosque? It's like saying you can't have a mosque in New York City. Who are you to say? I mean, we have these same folks who don't want anybody or the government telling us what we can do with our land and what we can do with our whatever, our cars or what, they're everything. They're talking about the government intrusion. This is the ultimate government intrusion to tell somebody they can't build a mosque. And we need to be standing up for rights and freedoms in this country. And sometimes that's the right and freedom for people to do things that you don't agree with. But that's part and parcel to the whole liberty gig, folks. Back to this email. These people could build a church anywhere, but the only reason to build them across from these sites would be in an in-your-face reason. This mosque would be there to say, not only did we kill thousands of you, but we're still here and we're in your face. Deal with it. The right to build a church in a specific spot should under no circumstances supersede the right of victims not to have their pain intensified and the memory of the victims desecrated. We have taken political credit. Well, you don't have that right. Let me back up. So the victims, the right of the victims to have their pain intensified and the memory of these victims desecrated. You don't have that right. You just don't have it. Let me give you another example, which is probably going to hack some of you folks off. We got these nuts, Fred Phelps and the the Westboro Church in Kansas, and these people come out and they protest against at dead soldiers' funerals. And they're protesting across the street. I think it is a despicable thing to do. But you can't tell people they can't protest on a public street. Because the next time they say this is going to be something you want to protest. I mean, think of what you're doing. It is despicable, and I appreciate these folks who come and surround the family and get between the protesters. That's fine too. They have a right to do that. And become a wall between these idiots from the Westboro Baptist Church or whatever it is. That's fine too. But you cannot start telling people they can't protest. It's like the guy who was praying in front of the Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's going to be next. If you're saying that you can't offend somebody's sensitivities, and what about a young girl who's making this decision to go have an abortion? There's somebody out there praying in front of the Planned Parenthood. We got to get rid of that. No, we don't. He has a right to be out there and protest or pray or whatever it is he wants to do on a public street, wherever it is, whatever it is. And you can have people who, I'm sure you have protesters that show up right there on the sidewalk at Ground Zero who actually think that America's bad and think that we're causing all this pain. I'm sure the Michael Moores of the world, I don't agree with all that stuff. I think it's tacky. I think it's distasteful, but they have the right to do it. And I think that people have gone nuts over this mosque thing to the point where you're going to screw it up for all of us. You are playing into their hands. What is it that the terrorists want to do? They want to beat us with our own freedom. They want to defeat us by using our own freedoms against us, and you're going to allow them to do it. If you're going to ban somebody from erecting a mosque 2 blocks from ground zero, then they'll be able to ban all sorts of things that may be near and dear to you.
I think they should ban swimming pools. I cannot believe the apartment complex I live in is so insensitive
To you.
to me.
Since your mother drowned in
My
a swimming
mother
pool.
drowned in a swimming pool, and not just about 100 feet away,
Right.
a swimming pool.
That's right. I can't believe they allow cars in the parking lot since my mother was killed in a car wreck. It's just so insensitive.
Cars should be banned.
They should they should be banned.
Cars and swimming pools, get rid of them.
Oh, sure. I mean, this is how ridiculous you go. You want to protect people from hurt feelings, and it goes on to say,
That's life, my friend.
we have taken political correctness and the way we do things in this country to a ridiculous extreme. Pedophiles aren't allowed to live across the street from a daycare. A rapist isn't allowed to call and harass his victims or move into her apartment building upon his release from prison. Political correctness is going to be our downfall. Victims have rights too. Well, I think you're the one being politically correct in this instance. You're saying that victims must be protected from somebody because of what they're doing out in the open in public, and you can't do that. You can't circumvent and thwart somebody's freedoms just because you find it distasteful. Because what you find distasteful may not be distasteful to but what you're doing may be distasteful to somebody else. So be careful what you wish for, my friends. Be careful what you wish for.